Welcome, Mississippi State fans, to homecoming on the Starkville campus, where Mississippi State 31-17 victors over the number 12th ranked Kentucky team. Mississippi State's third win over a ranked team this year. I believe that puts them in a pretty unique situation nationally, Steve. But this was a must-win for the Bulldogs in so many ways, emotionally, practically speaking, for bowl eligibility, just for the general feel of where the program's headed this year as Mike Leach's team continues to develop.
And not just for the team, but this fan base. I mean, this is a fan base that needed something good to happen. You get the big win at A&M after a terrible loss to a really bad Memphis team. And that's kind of the Mike Leach experience over the years. You win some games you're probably not expected to. You lose some you're not expected to. But let's be honest, David. Mississippi State was decidedly the better football team tonight, and I thought that the talent differential was expansive in Mississippi State's favor. It didn't matter what State wanted to do offensively. Everything was open. 36 of 39 for Will Rogers, and 2 of the 3 incompletions were drops. You got a quarterback delivering the football on time and on target. Thought the Bulldog receivers did a much better job, and that's the thing last year. It was a complete nightmare in Lexington. The nightmare tonight, the Halloween scare, was on the Wildcats, as it was the Bulldogs creating all the turnovers rather than the Wildcats.
We'll talk about the passing game in a bit, but let's talk about what I want to write about tonight, the ground game. All right, 94 yards rushing is not going to open a lot of eyes nationally. For a Mike Leach air raid offense, that's a big number, and partly, too, because that's a pretty good Kentucky team for defending the ground game. Now, they knew or suspected Kentucky would rush 3 or 4, drop 8 or 7, and the opportunities would be there to run the ball. But it wasn't just that they ran the ball, it's how they ran the ball. Jaquavius Marks and Dylan Johnson, who both are a little bit banged up, ran hard, ran physical, got yards after contact, made people miss, as you pointed out also, and they turned those short passes into good gains as well. That's as well-rounded an effort by the running backs, with Will Rogers and the offensive line doing their part, as we've had this season.
Well, and Will Rogers told us in postgame that he knew there were going to be some run boxes that would be to their advantage. I thought he checked in a lot of plays that really made sense. There were a couple times, too, that, we ran a toss to the short side of the field inside the red zone. That kind of blew up on us. But, by and large, I thought we called a good ball game. And I thought we attacked down the field when it was there, but didn't force the issue. And that's what happened last year. I mean, KJ Costello, God bless him, but there were so many times he would just lay a ball up there and hope for the best. I thought Will played in control tonight. I think the team responded to him and his leadership, and as a result, you saw the air raid offense probably at its best. And I think you could make the contention this is the best win for Mike Leach at Davis-Wade Stadium. Obviously, the big win on the road at A&M is the cherry on the top at this point. But when you look at what's left of the schedule, and we talked about this, David, you needed to win one of those 4 toss-up games. Well, now you've done that. And you've got Tennessee State in your back pockets. You feel like bowl eligibility is now just a matter of time. But you're going to go on the road and play a pretty vulnerable Arkansas team next week. That's a game that I think State might actually be favored in. Then you got to go play an Auburn team that got a big win tonight over an Ole Miss team. And who knows the condition that Matt Corral and Ole Miss is going to be in when they get here Thanksgiving night. But now you look at this and you say, okay, we got a bowl trip kind of in the bag. Now we're jockeying for position against 3 teams that we should have a chance to compete with.
Already looking ahead, aren't we, Steve? That's what we can afford to after a victory. So that's always fun to do as well. Back to tonight's game, though. I mentioned the ground game, the effectiveness, and let's talk, too, about the receivers. They made some big plays. The catch in the end zone by Rara, it doesn't get much better than that, but it's a beautifully flown ball. The blocking by guys like Austin Williams and Mekhi Polk and others. These receivers, I talked to Glenn Young this week, who knows a little bit about catching the ball, and he agreed that maybe they're not quite as good as the top 4 off that 80 offense that he was in, but he says this is a really good and deep and broad bunch of wide receivers State's got to work with. And now you see 13 guys caught passes last week, a bunch this week. Mississippi State's really making use of all their skill sets.
Yeah, and how do you game plan against defensively? How do you say, okay, we're going to take this guy away from him? And then Mike Leach and them are like, okay, fine. Then we'll just work underneath Austin Williams on 7- and 8-yard comeback routes and put us in second and short. And that's the thing that makes this offense really go is it's a pick-your-poison thing. It's like, okay, you want to shade a safety to Mekhi Polk, that's fine. We'll just drag Jaden Wally across the coverage. And I thought State did a great job against the drop 8 tonight. And there were times that they, it was rare that Kentucky actually blitzed 3 or ran 3. They ran 4 and 5, and State did a pretty good job. In the first half, some communication issues kind of admitted by everybody. But the bottom line is they cleaned it up at half, and they kept a clean pocket in the second half. And Will Rogers really picked Kentucky apart. And this is a Kentucky team. Listen, I know that even some of our residents here will tell you that I may be a Kentucky hater. They were never in this ball game. Even at 10-0, it really felt like State wasn't out of it. And once State goes down in scores, because the only reason their best offensive play was a punt return where they get a block in the back.
A block in the back on Tulu Griffin.
Absolutely. And so it's like even then it was no time to panic. But once State settled into itself, I thought State really showed to be the better team. And I think this Kentucky team has lived a charmed life. They needed a pick six to get by UT Chattanooga. They struggled against Missouri, which is a terrible defense. And so I felt all week long that this was a matchup that favored Mississippi State, and the Bulldogs went out and exploited those weaknesses tonight and won the game and really never really felt like there was any anxiety in the second half.
And you notice, too, when Kentucky resorted to calling false snap counts and things like that, that's almost an admission of they weren't going to win this game straight up. Yes, State offensive linemen jumped a few times, but Will Rogers did a great job of settling them down and converting. His third down completion rate of plays, what State did a great job, and I'll give credit to Matt Wyatt for pointing this out, was there were a lot of plays that kept the third downs down to about 3 and 4 yards instead of 7 or 8 yards, but still they had to convert them, and Rogers and the offense did. The offensive line, despite those mistakes, they blocked really well when they didn't have those mistakes as far as jumping the count.
They did, and I really thought the play that was kind of the backbreaker for Kentucky is they have State backed up into a 1st and 25. And then State gets into a second long, and then you find Jaden Wiley out there in the middle of the field, and it's like all the little bush league stuff you do, and you put State behind the chains, and they still convert it, and it's like that's when you kind of sense a little bit of give up in Kentucky, and again, and I go back to this thing, and again, I'm not hating on Kentucky. Mississippi State is just better than Kentucky, and when Kentucky beats Mississippi State, something fluky has to happen. Like the kid, we had the episode of Sermonitis. When Peter Sermon in 16, we go up there and, Nick Fitzgerald leads us down and gives the game. It should have been a game-winning touchdown. We give up, a 51-yard field goal, career-long for the guy. And then, last year we go up there and just simply implode and throw 6 picks. But when you line up and play an equal game, Mississippi State wins the ball game. And you go back and look at this series for the last 15, 20 years, it has been lopsided in favor of Mississippi State. The all-time series now, Mississippi State at 25, Kentucky 24. But a lot of that's because of what began in 2009, and that's Dan Mullen dominating this rivalry. And he's actually did better at Mississippi State than he's done at Florida against these Wildcats.
You couldn't resist, could you?
Absolutely couldn't. And Dave, let me just say this too. It's one of those things. It's like, there's the guy that he struggles and he makes a name for himself and he marries his high school sweetheart, and then all of a sudden he gets some acclaim and some notoriety, and he thinks, I'm going to trade in my high school sweetheart for some Instagram model or whatever, and now all of a sudden that's what he's got, I think the bottom line is there's a lot of Florida fans that wish they could send him back to Starkville, but I think we got the coach we need right here at Mississippi State.
Let's turn to the defense while we got a little time here. Kentucky, and we scouted them well this week and said that, yes, they need a lot of help sometimes to make things happen offensively out there, but State, like you said, take away that punt. They got almost nothing done except for one offensive series in the game. Give credit to Zach Arnett. He kind of dialed back on some of the blitzes and gave up a little more there, maybe some pitch and catch. But they didn't sell out. They didn't get burned by the big play this time. They held their ground, and they made tackles when tackles were there to be made.
Yeah, and I thought the Bulldog linebackers were outstanding tonight. The front four really kind of created some room for those guys to operate. Chris Rodriguez is a great back for Kentucky. State made him look very, very average tonight, and then that is a big chore to be able to do that, to have a guy that talented. And I think we look up, Mike and I were talking late in the second quarter, they had 66 yards. 66 yards, and look at what State did last year against Kentucky. They limited them to 157 yards. I think Zach Arnett's got a pretty good idea about what Kentucky wants to do offensively. But the difference tonight is the Bulldog offense showed up and played exceptionally well, where last year it was a complete nightmare. But Bulldogs, again, huge win, not just for the team, not just for the program, but for this fan base that is hung in there and really needed something to feel good about. Now you've got back-to-back SEC wins and have some momentum heading to Arkansas next week.
Another thing about these back-to-back wins quickly, too. Look at the number of plays the other team has run, or rather not run. State has not only controlled the clock, the play imbalance is just completely amazing what State has done to Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Yeah, that was Vanderbilt. This was Kentucky, a team that likes to, make the game move quickly, keep the ball moving. And State, 2 weeks in a row, has limited the other team's chances with the ball, and that partly, too, is the offense. They're not only getting points and getting yards, they're eating up a lot of clock.
Well, I think you give credit to the Bulldog defense for winning on second down, which gives you a third and longer or a third and medium. And so you can kind of mix and match a little bit. And I thought Will Levis looked really, really, really average tonight. I mean, that was the thing we'd heard early in the year. Oh, this offense is going to be great. This is not a great offense. And I think the longer this season goes, people are going to figure out he's a little limited. And the interception that he threw to Sean Preston, you can go to a 2A high school football game in the state of Mississippi and see that same poor effort. I mean, he just lobbed that ball up there in the coverage. It was just a matter of who was going to pick it. And, that's what State does well defensively is they force you into taking chances you wouldn't ordinarily take. And I know they want to take a shot early and get some momentum going, take the crowd out of the ball game. And that's one of the final things I want to say, David, is we weren't near capacity tonight, which is disappointing. But the Bulldogs that were here were into the ball game and got to see a really good effort by Mississippi State. But I thought when State needed the crowd and needed the cowbells, they got it from the fans.
And the fans who came also got to see the 2021 National Championship Diamond Dogs receive their College World Series ring. A great ceremony there at the end of the first quarter. And at halftime, you have a lot of former Dogs, alumni Diamond Dogs come back, be recognized as well. A great night for Bulldog baseball. Mike Leach even wearing an M/S sweatshirt as he came to postgame. M/S on the helmets. Maybe we should borrow a little bit of that Diamond Dog magic for the rest of this football season.
You know what? Whatever works, David. I just want to win, and I know that's what our fan base feels. And there were so many people this week, even on our own message boards, that were, it's like I hate to use the term negative, but they just wanted something to feel good about so badly. And I think now we're beginning to see an improving football team begin to mature before our eyes, and I think it's going to set up for a very exciting stretch in November.
November begins in just 2 more days. We hope you all have a safe and happy Halloween celebration tomorrow night, if you indulge in that sort of thing. I've already raided the candy locker here at the stadium to hand out some to y'all. But next week, Bulldogs are at Arkansas, 3 o'clock kickoff in Fayetteville. Mississippi State now that the bowl eligibility, of course, Tennessee State, we're still got to win one more game there, but you feel good about it, has a chance to really now, as Steve says, position yourself for an even better bowl. Just a happy night here, a happy homecoming for Bulldog football, another home field win against the Kentucky Wildcats, and more chance to celebrate and more stories to write this evening. We want to thank you for tuning in to this post-game. Thank Mike Nemeth for being our cameraman tonight. We'll have our stories. His transcript's already up in the game report. Steve will be writing his. I got mine on the running backs, so Robbie and Paul are working on their pieces as well. A lot to read about, but a lot to enjoy. So have a happy Halloween, and all the happier because the Bulldogs gave a sweet treat with a 31-17 victory tonight over the 12th-ranked Kentucky Wildcats. For Mike Nemeth, Steve Robertson, this is David Murray from Scott Field, Davis Wade Stadium.